we have Takumi Abe giving his talk on rethinking serverless application workflows from a testing perspective. Takumi is a software engineer at KDDI Agile Development Center. He is also an AWS community. Today he will be sharing the relationship between design and testing through real-world experience of test automation in serverless architecture. Please join me in welcoming Takumi.
Is that okay? Yes? Is that okay? Yeah. So, hello everyone. Thank you for coming to my session so early in the morning. So, my name is Takumi Abe. So, come to from Japan. So, please call me Abe Taku. So, nice to meet you today. So, first, thank you for organizing team. So thank you for inviting me and so giving me a chance to speak here. Oh, sorry. So I come to Hong Kong the first time and. So, 2 years ago, come. So, this is the night. So view beautiful, and I find a great the restaurant with dish. So shrimp one time. I have a great time. So everyone can take a photo of the slide and me. But so this is my first time speaking English. I'm very nervous since last night. So please understand. If you can scan the QR code, so this QR code. So you can see a Notion page. It has more material for this session, so please check out. So let's introduce myself. So I work software engineer KDDI Agile Development Center in Japan. So in my free time, private time, so I organize JOSUZ, Japan AWS User Group, Oita branch. So as an AWS community builder, so serverless topics. So I talk about serverless and so Agile like today. So that's enough about me. So here's the agenda for today. I'm talking about what I tried and what I learned from it. I hope we can share idea about serverless architecture and testing. Let's start with the story behind this session. My team made a serverless architecture with separated batch processing from the main system, EC2 system. We use AWS SAM to build step functions workflow. The workflow has a simple design with 3 states that run in a straight line. But sorry. So all 3 states are Lambda involved. We use AWS SAM to deploy its application in each Lambda. We made a unit test for each Lambda function, but we didn't automate workflow tests for the whole test state machine. My team member checked the input and output value of each state with their eyes. They are okay with this. What? We are not automating? That's what I thought. Then I realized I had never actually tested a serverless architecture before. So no one our team have experimented with this. Also, we thought the serverless architecture would almost never change. So we closed to check manually. But so I feel really worried about this. I hadn't heard much about testing serverless architecture, especially step function testing. So I decided to study and develop it. So let's organize the requirements first. The actual serverless architecture for batch processing looks like a diagram, this diagram. So I defined Lambda and step functions in AWS SAM. The process goes in a straight line through 3 states. It's simple. So for testing, I check the input-output of each state. I want to see if they have the expected value. But I'm trying this time in step functions workflow testing and adding into CI. This time I want to use the GitHub Actions workflows. I want to run tests without deploying to real AWS environments. So you always, So I want to use GitHub Actions workflow because I want to run tests when I push pull requests and merge to master. While studying, I learned about step functions local, so I decided to use it. So I'll explain step functions local. Step functions local can mock response from services like Lambda on your local computer. You can test step function in a in a separate environment. Sorry. There is also Docker image. So I thought I could use it in GitHub Actions workflow. So here's the architecture diagram I made. So in simple terms, inside the GitHub Actions workflow environment, I started a container from the step functions local Docker image. This step functions local Docker image is. Also for Lambda, I use AWS some local function. I treat them as endpoint and run them. One thing important to note, it does some local only issue a single endpoint. When actually trigger the Lambda function, I will need you to specify the function name using the AWSCDHK or similar methods. And there were even more programs. So the official document says, AWS official document says, step functions locus is currently an unofficial tool from AWS. It also says to use it only for testing. Don't include secret information it may have our step functions feature. In the end, it's not for production use. So I didn't have time to check this time, but local stack can make more services. It can also do the step function testing we wanted to do. But some features are only in the paid version. Also, it may not have all the latest AWS service updated. So be careful when you use it. So far, I've shared what I tried this time. Now, this is main topic. How do you test serverless architecture? I studied from many angles, but I didn't find the best practice for this kind of workflow testing. Serverless gives us great benefit. It helps us deliver value to customer quickly. That's why I think it's great when the architecture we need lasts longer and is easy to operate. And engineers, we can keep delivering value to customer. That makes me very happy. So this time, I hope we can think together. Let's go back to the basic of testing. Let's think about how to design serverless architecture. I want to say this first. I know there are other things in design like system performance and cost. I'm not saying those are wrong. This time, I'm just focusing on testing perspective. Let's think about what we can see from this view. These are very big questions. Why do we need tests? I thought about this while reading a book about CI code containers delivery. I found a passage that hit this wheel. I organized the key points and changed the word arbiter. I put it here. Please understand. So we can trust the process, predict, understand how to its behavior, and see it. So we can know the system risks. We can handle them quantitatively. Let me add more. Don't we understand the requirements better when we write tests? I want to trust. So this means two things. First, can anyone get the same results? Second, we can explain why it worked, or where there an error. Being able to reproduce is important. Being able to explain is also important. It shows how well you understand the process or system. Of course, it's best to explain the correct answer. But I think explain also means this. The situation is like this now. It's difficult from what we expected in this way. Can we make the unknown part similar? This relates to what I just said. Where we have tests, we understand. We don't have tests. There are risks we don't know. I believe the real reason we need tests is how much can we reduce these risks we don't know. Sorry. So let's talk about test type and boundary next. When you hear testing, you probably think unit tests and easy tests right away. Besides those two, there are many other tests of types. For example, logic, integration, workflow, and API tests, etc. So I want to explain all of them today, but I recommend knowing about these types and their purposes and goals. This is my idea. We could call it separate processing. Easy to test unit are also easy to understand unit for people. When we can this, the system naturally shows what it does, when it does, and why it does it. On the other hand, when something is hard to test or testing is difficult, it means too much responsibility for processing and logic is in that one place. Let's look at one example. Both of these architectures are built for the same purpose. They get from other servers process to data and store it in DynamoDB. But on the rest, the Lambda does two operations. First, get data from over other servers. Second, process data and store it in DynamoDB. But on write, each process is doing a different Lambda function. Like this, we separate the part where there are big uncertain elements, or where we can divide the meeting of processes. We check each part works correctly. When an error happens, we can know exactly where the problem is. I think the same is true For other parts, I do web backend development in Python and Ruby and Go, etc. I think many people thought dividing method is the same idea. So depending on what you think is the small unit, I believe you can use this way of dividing is in many places. This related to the example I just showed. Let's use the test perspective I talked about in system design. As I said, easily when you look from our testing operations view, you can easily see weak point like too much responsibility in one space. Because of this, you can greatly reduce the time from when an error happens to finding the error and creating the fix. The meaning is a bit different, but I think it's similar to reduce cycle time. So we can say that high testability helps us deliver system quickly. After hearing all this, I think many people are thinking, I can do it perfect from just a project start. To be honest, me too. What I talked about today changed a lot. So it depends on different simulation teams and how people think. When you look at small difficult, everything is different. Also, I don't think this is the perfect answer. It's not a silver bullet. And usually, we only know later this was the right things for the simulation. That's why don't try to be perfect from the start. Please try it little by little. In my opinion, the final goal to engineers delivering value to users. I often hear this from AWS sessions. To not lose sight of that, remember this serverless and testing are just tools. I think it's wrong if using them becomes the goal. And as I said earlier, we must always review user value. As long as you don't forget that, you'll be okay. Sorry, so slide one step late. So finally, here are summaries of the session. This time I tried to develop a workflow test for step functions. I didn't it somehow, but it will take more time to find the best practice. From there, I talked about point to be careful about when you building serverless architecture from a testing view. I also talk about what effect those free points have. And finally, I'd be happy if we could talk about this together. As I said earlier, there isn't much information online about this is the best way for step functions or flow testing. So I'd love to collect everyone's tips, like this is how we do it, or this is how we divide states. Let's build it together. So, finally, so it confirms Joe's Days AWS user group events. So Joe's Days 2026 will be held in Japan in March next year. It's the biggest Joe's event. Also, if you come to Japan or Kyushu, I can show you good place, and I can also introduce you to Joe's core members. Please feel free to contact me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Takumi. And the next session will start in 5 minutes.